Have you ever clicked Buy Now online? Of course you have. Well, in that split second, a huge, silent conversation kicks off between dozens of different systems. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the invisible engine that powers so much of global trade, SAP.
I mean, just think about it for a second. Millions of businesses all sending orders, invoices, shipping notices back and forth every single day. How does a company using one system send a purchase order to a supplier using a completely different system? How do they all speak the same digital language instantly without a single person getting involved? Well, that's the puzzle we're going to solve today.
All right, so here's our game plan. We'll start with what I call the digital handshake. Then we'll play detective and see what happens when good data goes bad. After that, we'll tackle the million-dollar question of financial risk, explore the massive S/4HANA revolution that's changing everything, and we'll wrap up with a little cautionary tale about the most dangerous switch in the whole system. Okay, let's dive into Section 1, the digital handshake. This is all about how businesses can talk to each other automatically without ever actually, talking. The secret sauce here is something called EDI, which stands for Electronic Data Interchange. The best way to think about EDI is like a global postal service for businesses. It's a universal standard. It doesn't care if you're on SAP, Oracle, or some custom-built thing. It just provides the rules so that a purchase order from one company is formatted in a way that any other company system can understand it. But, and this is a really important but, while EDI is the universal language of the letter itself, SAP needs its own special envelope to actually read that letter. And that SAP-specific envelope is called an IDOC. So you've got to get this straight. EDI is the message, the IDOC is just SAP's container for that message.
So let's follow the journey, right? Step 1. Your partner, your customer, sends you an order as a standard EDI file. Step 2. This file hits a piece of software called middleware that acts as a translator. It takes the EDI letter and stuffs it into that SAP-friendly IDOC envelope. And then step 3, SAP receives the IDOC, opens it up, and boom, a sales order is created automatically. No hands.
Which, of course, brings us right to our next section, when good data goes bad. Because, let's be real, this seamless process doesn't always go so smoothly. And when an order fails, you basically become a data detective. You gotta know where to look for clues. And your first clue is always the status code. It's pretty much a red light, green light system. Status 5.3? That's a green light. Success. The sales order was created, everything's great. But status 51? That's the red light. That's the one that gives everyone a headache. It means the IDOC arrived, but something inside it was just wrong. Maybe a bad part number, a customer on hold, and because of that, no order was created. So what's the detective's playbook? Well, first, an analyst uses a tool called WE02 to see the actual error message. If the message is clear, great. But if it's kind of vague, you move to step 2, a test tool called WE19. This lets you sort of replay the IDOC, but with corrected data, to see if your fix works. And if you're really stuck, well, that's when you have to call in the developers to dig deep into the code and find the real root of the problem. But here's a little pro tip for you, a secret from the trenches. Sometimes the problem isn't a failed IDOC, it's a missing one. You try to send an invoice out, and it just never gets created. The source material here is spot on. 99% of the time, the problem isn't the data, it's a simple setup issue in a place called the partner profile. That's the gatekeeper, and it's always the first place you should check. Okay, let's raise the stakes. We've talked about data accuracy, which is super important. But what about the money, the actual financial risk? That brings us to Section 3, the million-dollar question. Picture this. An automated order just landed in your system. No human has laid eyes on it, and it's for $1.5 million worth of your product. The system has to decide right now, do you ship the goods? How do you know if this customer is actually good for the money? This is where automated credit management becomes absolutely, fundamentally critical. See, in the old SAP systems, credit checks were pretty simple, kind of static. But in the new S/4HANA world, that whole system is obsolete. The new way, called FSCM, is mandatory. And you can see why. It's way more flexible. Instead of a simple static limit, it uses powerful formula-based rules that can even check with external credit agencies in real time to make much, much smarter decisions. And what is it looking at? Well, it's not just checking for overdue bills. Modern credit management looks at a customer's total exposure.
That means it adds up the value of orders they've placed, but you haven't delivered, deliveries that are on the truck but not invoiced yet, and the actual open invoices. It's the whole picture of risk, not just a snapshot of the past.
All of this leads us to the bigger picture here in Section 4, the S/4HANA revolution. Companies all over the world are making this massive technological leap. And honestly, it's like trying to upgrade the engine of a race car while it's already flying down the track at 200 miles an hour.
So, what's really changing? Well, a few huge things. The idea of separate customer and vendor files, gone. It's all unified under one business partner now. Those giant, clunky old status tables that slowed everything down, eliminated for a huge speed boost. And like we just talked about, that powerful FSCM credit management system, yep, it's now mandatory. Even something as simple as printing an invoice or sending an order confirmation is totally different. The old way was rigid and code-based. The new way, called BRF Plus, is way more flexible, based on decision tables that look a lot like a spreadsheet. Now, the new way is the future, but a lot of companies still use the old stuff. So for now, the two have to live side by side. And that brings us to our final, and maybe most important section. With all this incredible power and automation, what happens when someone makes a mistake? Let's talk about what the source material calls the most dangerous switch.
So here's the story. You've got a support consultant. They're under a ton of pressure. It's the end of the month. A huge critical shipment is stuck, blocked by the credit system. To get it out the door fast, they make a decision. They go into a global setting and just temporarily turn off the credit check for all standard orders.
And then they forgot to turn it back on. For 4 hours, the floodgates were wide open. Automated orders from super high-risk customers who were normally blocked, just poured into the system. The system blindly accepted $1.5 million in bad orders, and the warehouse started shipping out product that the company was probably never, ever going to get paid for, all from one person forgetting to flip one switch. It's a pretty powerful story, right? It just goes to show that these systems are these incredible, invisible engines of commerce, but their settings have absolutely immense, real-world consequences. And it makes you stop and think, behind all the code and the complexity, what's the single most dangerous switch in your business?